All right, welcome to the Black Flag podcast. My name's John, and I'll be your host for tonight, filling in for Sam Whipplinger. I've got two guests with me tonight. One, Daniel Hansen. You've seen him before. He's been on a few times. Got another guy with us here to talk about a bunch of different topics. His name's Garbage Main. You can find him on Twitter, I'm assuming, but I'm going to bring these guys in. So, Daniel
Hey.
and Mr. Garbage Main.
What
How
up?
you
What
guys
up?
doing tonight?
Doing
Doing
well.
good.
Well, we are live, so let's talk, I guess. So,
Thanks for having me,
Cool.
by the way.
yeah, no
Appreciate it,
problem.
boys.
I'm sorry that Sam couldn't be here, but he's feeling a
Cheers.
little under the weather, so we're gonna try to fill in and do the best we can without him. So,
See how we can sail the ship without the captain.
yeah, we'll see what we can do. So, Garbage Man, tell us about yourself. Where roughly are you located? What do you do? What things
I'm in,
get
I'm
you
in
going?
Tennessee. Just spent the last 4 years in Texas. Been a garbage truck driver for almost, it'll be 6 years,
All right.
6.5 years in two different states. Yeah, I'm just the dude who talks shit online, essentially.
Yeah. What's your main like platform or whatever? Where
I'm
you
on
spend most of your
Twitter.
time?
I'm on
Twitter.
Twitter. You can find me at Liberty Lock Pod.
Yeah. Nice.
No, no, I do. I co-host a show with Tyler Yonke,
Okay.
Libertarian Podcast Review, and we also do a thing called Kill Liberty Podcast, where anybody is welcome to sign up. You get a minute to talk about whatever you want and uninterrupted. Our
Really?
next show is going to be conspiracies, so whoever wants to come on and talk conspiracies is more than welcome to sign up and come on. We have a good time, drink
What's the
beer,
name of
crack
that
jokes.
one again? What's the name of that podcast?
Kill Liberty Podcast. So
Kill Liberty. All
you
right.
can find it on YouTube at Libertarian Podcast Review.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I think we had Tyler on our post Dave Smith show a couple weeks ago, maybe a month
That
ago.
son
or
of a
something like
bitch.
that.
I disavowed Tyler completely and all homosexual bicyclists.
There you go. All right. Yeah. So yeah, no, he was real good. We enjoyed him having him on too. So that was pretty fun. But got to chat with him for a minute. But
He's a good dude. How was did you guys enjoy the Dave episode? I saw you had a debate or something.
yeah, so neither of us two, Daniel or I, were on that one. It was kind of the other guys that are part of this podcast are kind of the flagship members, I guess you could say. We're kind of the second stringers, but yeah, it was good. I mean, they're actually a couple of the guys are actually at my house doing it, and it was pretty interesting. I got to kind of, I was around the guys when they were doing it, but it was good.
Well, after this episode, they'll be warming the bench.
Yeah, Roger that.
We'll get called up red shirt.
Take over.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
no, it was good. We were pretty honored to have Dave come on. He's definitely has more of an audience, more of a reach than us. This was kind of a step backwards for him to come on our podcast. But I mean, I think he's just a cool dude, though. He likes just talking what he likes to talk. Talking liberty, and
yeah.
Specifically, we were talking about open borders versus his kind of more modified libertarian look at the border situation as it currently stands, and it was pretty good. Did you catch any of it or not really?
I haven't, but I would like to watch it. I mean, Dave is definitely a Hoppian on the border subject, so he tends to be pretty good about it, or at least where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I think that he's not fully open borders, but that's okay. I mean, he has some different views on it than just a pure open borders person won't agree with, I guess. And that was kind of what it was all about, I guess, because most of us here on the Black Flag are more open borders leaning, I guess, and we just kind of wanted to talk with him, have him clarify his position a little bit more, which he did. He did a good job of it, so it was good.
It would have been interesting. I would have enjoyed being on that one just because I actually lean just a little bit more towards where Dave's position is.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I find I find it a more nuanced area. An area I should say that you can be more nuanced in.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was interesting. It kind of turned into kind of Dave going over his position a lot. I don't think it was more of a discussion than a debate. So then, but it was good. It was definitely good to kind of hear him flesh out his position again. But and then later, right after that, then Dave left and we ended that podcast. Then we did like an after show with Tyler came on, and we just kind of talked about it because he was listening then live to it before, so he kind of critiqued us a little bit and tore us to shreds, so that was good.
He's good at that, but he's a
Yeah.
Californian, so I'm sure he wants to keep all the state borders open so he can leave California. But we
Yeah.
we have to build a wall around California to keep all of them there.
Yeah, I don't know. He needs to get out quick if something's going to happen, maybe. But anyway, it was a good time. But anyway.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Dave's pretty good at articulating his positions in a way that doesn't come across maybe as coarse as someone like myself would.
Sure. Well, he's just got a lot of experience with it. I mean, the public speaking that just in general that guy's done is light years ahead of most people. So he's just naturally just going to be a good talker, and he's obviously talked about this specific issue a lot too. I mean, I probably listened to just myself probably half dozen podcasts where he's talked about his border position. So it was good. I recommend it. It was a good podcast. But
hell yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So you originally from the South then?
Yes, sir.
Are you? All right, cool. From Tennessee then originally, and moved to Texas for a while and then back?
Yep. So born and raised here in Middle Tennessee, and now I'm back. So
okay.
For the foreseeable future, I don't know what's on the horizon, but for now, I'm back.
Sure. Yeah. So Daniel and I are both from Minnesota, and I actually spent 7 years living in a combination of Tennessee and Mississippi. Actually.
Hell yeah.
I lived down there from 2011 through like 2017, something like that.
So were you like towards Memphis, West Tennessee area?
Yep. West Tennessee, north of Memphis. I lived in downtown Memphis for a little bit and then moved to Mississippi.
Bastard.
I know. No, it was fun. I lived in a condo right downtown. It was a great time. Right next, like 3 blocks from Beale Street. I had a great time.
No, Memphis is a fun city. But it's rough.
Yeah. It's rough in places, just like all big cities. I mean, there's places you just don't want to go. But no, it was a great time. And then I lived in northern Mississippi, kind of west of Oxford, kind of area, Clarksdale, Batesville area.
How much of a culture shock was it for you?
Oh, like culture shock doesn't even like describe it, man. Moving from like small town Minnesota to like literally the deep South was an amazing experience. I really liked it. It was fun. Just the definitely differences in people and culture for sure. So I worked on I managed a farm actually down there in the Mississippi Delta is what I farm for a living, and
nice.
Worked for a good sized operation down there, and got to know a bunch of guys, farm hands, and brought the roughest of the rough, and made me appreciate my upbringing a lot. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, hell yeah. What were y'all farming down there?
Mainly cotton, but corn and soybeans too. Just row cropping and that sort of thing. But yeah, that Clarksdale, Batesville, Tunica area is very different from Minnesota, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, when I was in Texas, it's pretty similar culture to here in Tennessee.
Sure.
When my friends would call, I'd always just say, went from eating fried chicken all the time to eating tacos all the time. But aside from that, the culture is a lot
similar.
Yeah.
I always tell a story to like describe it to people that, especially from like up here in Minnesota, that just have no idea. Like the poverty levels in northern Mississippi are just like, it's like a third world country almost in some places. I mean, obviously you have your rich people just like you do in third world countries, but the story I always tell was one of the guys that actually worked for me. He was born and raised right there in the Delta, and I think he was about my age, in his early 30s, late 20s maybe. And we sent him for like a week to go work to run a cotton picker on one of our other locations just north of Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me later that that's the farthest away from home he'd ever been, was
Yeah.
2-hour drive.
Hell yeah.
You know?
I respect the hell out of those people.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. Just very different. But anyway, yeah. So you talk a lot online. Who do you,
Yeah, I
like?
stir up quite a bit of shit sometimes. I kick up shit.
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know who you were until Sam said, "Oh, Garbage Man's coming on tonight." I'm like, who is this guy? So
yeah, I don't know. I'm on Twitter. Sometimes I will kick up some dust. It's mostly pee pee poo poo stuff, and then every once in a while I'll make a thread about something interesting. But
sure.
yeah, I tend to I I don't know if I would align myself in Liberty Twitter. I guess I am or whatever, but
Sure.
I'm more
Just by
like
default.
yeah, but I'm just a blue collar guy who's, talk shit as someone who works a blue collar job would, and some of the Liberty Twitter gets in their feelings about it or whatever. But yeah, I mostly I try to stay in my little close circles of Hoppians and those types of Rothbardian ANCAP. So
Sure. Nice. You is your life mostly like online, or do you have any like local friends or anything that are like libertarians or liberty minded at all, or is it all most of your liberty stuff just online?
well, I've met quite a few people off Twitter, and we're friends in real life. Most of my friends in real life, I don't know. I've weeded out a lot of them because I just don't like dealing with the leftist shit in my personal life. So I'm good at alienating myself from a lot of people. But I've got a lot of friends who are pretty based. I mean, my brother is like a right wing bodybuilder. He doesn't like read any. He's not like into liberty shit, but he just gets it
Right.
like intuitively because he's got discipline to lift weights and shit. So
Right. I hear you.
And that helps. I mean, my family is, from Tennessee, so they're just culturally based, being from the South and having
No
farms
doubt.
and shit.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and believe me, I know the type. I used to live there for a while, so
Mm-hmm.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd say, I mean, I definitely do have friends that are like modal progressives or whatever. And,
Sure.
sometimes I got to put on the kid gloves with them if they want to talk to me about something, but
Yeah.
I don't go full bore on them all the time.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably something that I need to probably work out a little bit, especially with like some of my family members, honestly. Yeah, I have a few that just don't quite get it yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah. I find when it comes to Twitter, the way that I like to act is basically just troll everyone. Just I find like people say the most absurd stuff out loud on Twitter, and it's like that's the stuff you think privately to yourself, and you're like, oh, that's stupid. I should never say that. And I feel like there's so many opportunities to like you don't have to make a logical argument. Like you just basically like say exactly what they're saying right back to them, and it's just like so absurd.
Yes.
And,
I mean, Twitter,
just say it more clear than they're saying it.
You should be having fun on Twitter. If you're not having fun on Twitter, get the hell off.
Exactly.
It'll ruin your life.
Some people take it too seriously, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
I like when I run into those longer threads explaining, the detailed workings of or philosophy behind different ideas. But I find whenever I get into those, I end up rambling more than getting out a cohesive argument. And so I try to stick to the trolling.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to lurk the threads, but if you're going to interact with people, it's fun to just like troll or just like cut up with your boys that are your boys and aren't going to report you for a dumb joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Samuel just said, "What is the gayest flag?"
The gayest flag? Well,
It's a tough one.
I mean, there's the first one that pops to mind is the rainbow flag, obviously, right? I mean, that is the gay flag, but maybe there's one that's gayer. I don't know.
The communist flag.
Probably the hammer and sickle on the red background. That's pretty gay.
I wanted to say a flag. I just don't know if it would get us like banned. It's a blue and yellow flag. Maybe say negative things about that flag.
Well, they seem to be getting a lot of attention these days, just like the other flags have been getting in years past. That's for sure.
Yeah, I heard like 10 billion more in funding for Ukraine now.
Janet Yellen was up there. Janet Yellen was up there talking about it just the other day.
Look, I respect the hustle.
East Palestine. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's a great hustle, and there's people in East Palestine who are like literally like, fish are dying in the river. Who knows until growing season starts what it's going to do to all the crops and everything. But it's like, no, let's just send that money over to Ukraine. They need it. We don't need it here.
Yeah, did you guys hear about how this just recently too? Joe Biden was talking about how we're going to now fund the pensions of the Ukrainian people now, the older people in Ukraine.
Hell yeah,
and he was just talking about how they need a little money in their pocket. That's literally a near quote of Biden. They need a little money in their pocket, so let's send them some more money. But
hey, they gotta heat their houses, right?
That's true. Absolutely. They do need to heat their houses, and looks like we're going to be paying for it.
This is straight out of the progressive playbook, right? If you know about Reconstruction after the Civil War, we were paying pensions for Union troops up until what, 2011?
Yep.
I think
2016, I think.
2016, yeah. So Union soldiers' pension funds being paid out hundreds of years later. So, I mean, shout out to the Ukrainians. They're getting that bag right now. I wish I had that plug. I wish I could be in Biden's ear and get me a bag like that.
Yeah, they're working it. No doubt about
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Over 100 billion now. Yeah.
I don't even know what is the number. I mean, who keeps track of these things? They're not keeping track of it.
I heard it was over 100 billion before this new round of 10 billion. So now it's got to keep pushing 110.
This may be a little kooky, but I almost feel like Biden administration wanted the invasion to happen, given Hunter's dealings in Ukraine. There was that like trans military general that was giving information to Russia. I don't know if y'all saw that. It was several months ago.
That's been a while ago now. I can't remember that guy's name.
But a lot of it seems real weird. Keeping the Ukraine as basically a client state of the U.S. for forever, and they're going to be in debt to the U.S. no matter what, whether they win, lose, or draw. There's a lot of evidence, of things, people who have treated it like their corruption playground for a long time on both sides that I'm sure they'd like to see destroyed. So.
Sure. Just if nothing else, to cover up their tracks so far. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's incredible the amount of corruption that flows through that country, and it's suddenly when it was convenient or even necessary, it's like, okay, we're gonna shut down the narrative of corruption, just make that history disappear, and now it's this noble nation that we have to stand behind, and it's not even a nation. It's I know you're not supposed to say that, but it's another one of these. Basically, it's a facade. It was put there for diplomatic reasons. And historically, like it's like that. What we see as Ukraine on a map didn't exist 100 years ago.
No,
not in any form or fashion.
But they were, when the Soviet Union was around and they were absorbed into the Soviet Union, they were, if you're familiar with the Holodomor, they were an ethnic group there, and I would consider them a nation, maybe not a nation state. But
certainly, with the borders that it currently has or had leading up to this war, we're probably never those. What I'm trying to say is those borders are probably not in the right spot to
And that's the
match up with
problem is
that
it's you,
nationality, like you're
how do
talking about.
you yeah how do you pick sides when the borders have been moved and the civilians might remember a different history than what the current narrative is? How do you pick sides? It's so convoluted in that area of the world. Like you can't, like the Baltic region, I know it's not the Baltic region, but it has similar issues. But it's like the Baltic region, it's the land of blood and honey. And it's similar in the Slavic area, where it's this is a land that has switched hands so many times. When you try and just pick winners and losers, it doesn't work in long term. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I think the wise thing to do is not pick between competing gangs. You can say they're all gay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They are. They all have problems. Why are we trying to decide with one or the other?
Definitely. I mean, there's, and we're talking about more than two, if possibly more than three, who knows who all is involved and what players are involved there. Obviously,
For sure.
All these governments are corrupt by their very nature. So you can say they're all gay and not pick a side. I think a lot of people fall into this trap of, the propaganda is so strong that it almost forces you to pick a side. And so people are just like wired into it. And
well, they're certainly trying to make us to pick a side. That's for sure. I mean,
yeah. Or some of the propaganda, like, even what the NATO put out, was it today or yesterday? It was just so cringe. It's like repellent. You know what I mean? So it pushes you towards the other side. So,
I think that's part of the point, though, is like either you're so bought into the idea that you have to accept it, or you just see it for what it is and you have to reject it, and then you show your true colors.
Yeah,
they see you for who you are.
Yeah, what was that thing that NATO put out? That was bad. I'm trying to look it up.
This is like Marvel movie. It was like the great epic of our time. It's like Thanos versus the Avengers or something. They had the same energy as the heroic nurses.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And it's like, any rational person who sees that is going to be like, all right, well, this is gay. So I might have to root for Russia now. But I mean, NATO is gay, the US is gay, Russia is gay, the Ukrainian government's gay. Like it gets real complicated once you start digging into the propaganda and some of the players and what's going on in the region, and has been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say about the safest thing that we can all know that's absolutely true about this whole thing is that whatever the mainstream narrative is, that's definitely not what's going on. So whatever MSNBC, CBS, or the White House, or NATO, or any of those people, or the Ukrainians, or Zelensky, or any of them are saying, it's definitely not true. And more likely the opposite is true.
I think some of it could be true, but it's only being said to be politically expedient. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, true to an extent, right? Like, like
there's
factual but not truthful, right?
Yeah, you can lie by omission. So you can speak only truth and still be lying by leaving out important details.
Yeah, CNN could go on TV and talk about whatever bombs were dropped in Ukraine today, and they would still want to eat your children at the end of the night. So,
for sure. It's kind of like how you can send $100 billion to Ukraine, even if like some of it goes to the Biden family. It went to Ukraine, and then.
Well, it goes to Ukraine, but first it goes to California and goes straight into Raytheon's pockets, right? Because that's, that's where all this money's actually going. They don't load it into a ship and send it over to Ukraine. Raytheon just sends them more.
No, but by the time the numbers transfer through the computer, it's faster just to put the money on.
It's hardly even done that way, probably. Honestly, it's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. And then, of course, we're paying for it.
I think what
inflation and the rest of it.
Yeah, I think what's most ridiculous about it is that they do it so fragrantly in our faces. Like you can see it exactly for what it is, and they do it and they just scoff at us by doing it.
Yeah, and
That's
then
what that's what I like about it, because that right there is like what pushes people away and like towards our side. You know what I mean? They're gonna be
Oh
like,
yeah, it's absolutely beneficial to us. It's hilarious, honestly. That it's kind of like I don't know if you ever watched Tim Pool, but it's kind of like he brings up every once in a while how like they're like third or fourth generation of inbreds at this point. You know, the guys who are running the world. It was like this plan that was started 100 years ago, and they're like all inbred families now. And at this point, they can't keep things together anymore. They're all losing their marbles.
And if they aren't inbred genetically, they're not inbred genetically. They're inbred ideologically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
which is the same thing.
I mean, I'd highly recommend, if you haven't read The Progressive Era by Rothbard. I mean, it talks about this quite a bit.
I have not.
The J.P. Morgan chases and the Rockefellers and the intermarriages and things like that. And, you know, some of these international bankers, you know, they may have competing interests, but they also have converging interests as well. You know, so they might be in an inter-family feud or intra-family feud, but they might have a converging interest on something else where, you know, they can find a way to both monopolize their power a little bit more and consolidate a little bit more.
That's actually a term that I learned, ironically, from critical race theory, is interest convergence. I'd never heard that term said that way before until I started digging a little bit on you know, some of the founding books and stuff of CRT, and they talk about interest convergence a lot. Obviously not in the same context as what we were just talking about it, but it's the same thing, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
The mutual interests of everybody converging on the same point, even though they're arriving there from different ways and for different reasons. But
yeah, definitely. I haven't done too much into CRT stuff. I just reject it on his face. But
yeah, I mean, obviously you take like one look at it and be like, this is stupid, but I've actually done a little bit of research on it. You know, you maybe have heard of James Lindsay. I've been following him a lot for the last couple of years, actually. And then doing some of my own research, you know, taking what he says and then going and reading a few of the founding books and stuff. And just, it's
that's the only thing he's good on.
No, you're right. Philosophy. That's the only thing he's good on. Yeah, he's been real doing the anti-national divorce thing lately. He's been going hard against that.
Well, you got to be careful with some of the, you got to be careful with a lot of these intellectual internet folks that, you know, James has always called himself a liberal. He's basically center left. He became a MAGA guy, and he's never claimed the right, and he always puts down like the right wing Christians and all this stuff. You know, I don't think the problem with intellectuals is once they step out of their field of knowledge, they're standing in a shallow pool and they think they're, you know, 10 feet tall.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Yeah, I think
Jordan Peterson's been doing that lately.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, intellectuals, that they think that they're so well educated that they can quickly look at another area and surmise what there is to know about it in order to intelligently communicate their opinions on it. But they've spent so much time focused on this other work over their lifetimes, they haven't paid attention to the history of how a certain other, like somebody who's so invested in sciences may not pay attention to the geopolitical landscape until there's a mysterious pandemic that starts out of potentially a lab or something.
Yeah, and everybody's so democracy.
Oh, sorry. Did we lose him?
And I was.
No, we're losing him. He's got a bad connection or something.
Robo Daniel.
Yeah. We're losing you, Daniel. I'm gonna kick you out here in a second.
All right, I'll check my connection here for you. What's going on?
All right, well, I guess it's just us for a minute.
I was saying, you know, everybody is so democracy brained, and especially online, you deal with these intellectuals who have built this following on their, you know, their subject of interest, and they step out of their field, and it can warp your perspective. You know, if you have the right opinion, if somebody like James Lindsay, who has, 20 times your following or whatever, says some dumb shit about national divorce or anything else, then you may start to question your own beliefs. And it's like, I don't care if I'm ratioed as long as I know I'm right. And that kind of goes with some of the leftist attitude of thinking where they like want to be ratioed. Not that I'm trying to be ratioed, but I just don't like, if I'm right, I know I'm right on this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I don't have to respect your opinion because X, Y, and Z on this other topic. We're talking about this right specifically.
Yeah, I think it probably is like their hubris or ego or whatever you want to call it, where you take a look at a guy like James Lindsay, and you can definitely tell if you've listened to him at all that he has done a lot of deep digging on, especially this CRT, topic or whatever. He has probably spent thousands of hours investing in this at this point in his career. And then, but like, has he done the same amount of 1,000-hour deep dive in national divorce? Well, no.
Or economics or anything else.
Any
Yeah. So
none of it.
And what I wish these people understood is when they do step out of their lane like that, they jeopardize their own credibility by doing that. It's like, maybe take a back seat to someone who knows what they're talking about. I know you're an intellectual and you like having your voice heard and you've built an audience and a following, but listen to what other people are saying carefully.
Yep. Nope, I agree. And then, it gets so, I don't know. And I guess that's part of what you got to do, I guess, as a consumer of online information, is just try to procure that information from good sources and try to weed them out when they're not talking good stuff. You have to try to, take the good and try to weed out the bad, I guess. I'm going to try to bring Daniel back on. I think he's back in. Daniel, you good?
Yep. I think so.
Sometimes the internet does that.
You're not all glitchy, so that works.
So anyway, let's see. Maybe we have time for another topic. Let me pull it up here. Samuel, he's a goofy guy. Oh, Scott Adams.
Oh yeah.
You guys know about what's going on with Scott Adams lately? Have you seen this video?
Race realist Scott Adams?
Yeah. I guess is that what he is now?
He's another one of those guys that's,
same deal.
He's in the wind.
What's crazy, I think, is like all of these guys who call like Tim Pool a grifter because Tim Pool got into this right wing space. He used to be a left winger, and now he's in this right wing space, and they call him a grifter.
He's still a left winger, though.
Yeah, and now you've got all these people coming over, like Scott Adams, who's just saying a whole bunch of shocking things. Like he's just like trying to shock you. Everything that he says is just trying to get your attention, and it's like, does he really believe what he's saying? I think he's like, he does so much build up in these videos too to get to the point of like, all right, I'm gonna say it. You're gonna hear me say it. Just wait a little bit longer. And it's like he's just trying to get the views. It almost seems like, and that's like, it almost seems like you're the one who's grifting. He's constantly following the pendulum swing. Whatever's popular is what he's doing. It seems like, and so, I don't know. I some of the stuff that he says I like, some of the stuff I don't, but he definitely seems to swing with the times. It's like whatever's popular is what he's going to get on board with.
Yeah, he was all in on the whole COVID thing, that's for sure. He was drinking that Kool-Aid about as fast as they were handing it out. So
I think he was one of the ones calling people idiots for questioning the efficacy of the vaccine.
Oh yeah,
and didn't he put out a video like apologizing and then like walk that back recently too or something?
Wait. Yeah, but it's the only once it was popular to do so. That's the thing. It's like he seems to always be in the times of what's popular.
He put out a video apologizing?
Yeah, I think he like apologized to the anti-vaxxers and then like a day or two
Well, I don't
later, still called him stupid or something like that.
I don't think he apologized. I think
Oh.
he was explicitly clear that he didn't regret his decision. He's like, I don't regret anything. I just changed my opinion with new data.
Yeah, and it was almost like, well, they were right. You know, who could have known at the time, right? But
yeah,
turns out they were right.
Yeah, I'm not a big Scott Adams guy. He seems mostly to be a nice guy, but I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's grifting to some degree. I think this
Fair
is just this is just you know, he knows what drives the clicks, and
oh yeah,
you know, he's not somebody that strikes me as someone who has like a
Daniel, are you good?
yeah, I'm good.
Uh-oh, we lost the garbage man.
Oh no. Well, I
At
think
first
I'm good here for a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, he's off.
Yeah, I think
Anyway.
it is. To his point, yeah, I think everybody grifts to a certain point, but I do think there is something to be said for people who stick to their ethos of what they believe to be right, and that was one thing. Like I have to say is like in the beginning of the pandemic, I looked up studies on the efficacy of masks, and I found a study published by the CDC, a compilation of 10 studies actually, and it was published on the CDC's website, and talking about how they decided, or they found, looking at these 10 studies, that masks have a negligible efficacy. And so therefore they don't do anything with airborne pathogens. And they still recommended that they should be, they thought they should be recommended to keep people calm. And it's like, so I saw that in the beginning, and I shared it with people, and immediately the article got deleted like everything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and, they burned that quick.
I wasn't smart enough, and I should have downloaded the whole thing. But yeah, it's just crazy because, I was raised just paying attention to more like natural medicine, just more historical, homeopathic and naturopath, and just eating well, just the whole lifestyle, not doing any one particular thing. And then just the mindset that hospitals are for certain purposes, and they're not for just everyday use. Yeah. And so just a different mindset with all of that. And so looking at when this whole narrative came down of you need to stay indoors, and it's like, no, you need to be getting sunlight, and you need to stay away from people, and it's like, no, you actually need to be getting in contact with people to keep your immune system up, and just all of these different things that they were saying. And it got, the first 2 weeks, some of it made sense, but after that, it just got to the point of ridiculousness so quickly. And it's like, it became like this, what we're talking about, where it's like, your mark is, if you follow, you're in. If you don't follow, you're showing that you're a dissenter.
Yep. And
I made it back.
There was
Sorry.
No, you're good.
All right.
No, yeah,
yes.
Fine. You're perfect now.
Did you guys have any, like, was there any contention with the recent Scott Adams video, the race realist Scott Adams?
I didn't actually see the video. I just read the synopsis in the news article or whatever.
I watched it. I thought it was stupid, but I mean,
I only thought it was stupid because it was coming from him, but I didn't find anything really wrong with what he was saying.
did I find anything wrong with what he was saying? I guess he probably, same thing what we were talking before. He was probably completely factual. Like, yeah, those studies probably do exist where those are the kind of numbers that would come back for the way Black people feel. I don't know if, I don't agree with his answer to the problem though. Like, just get away. I don't agree with that. I don't think that helps anything. More division, but I guess that's just my opinion. I can't articulate it. I can't. I hear you, and I think, I guess I would say that I do too, but I don't know, something about that one just rubs me the wrong way, and I don't think I'm going to be able to articulate it very well. I'm still kind of working on it, I think, but
I think one
it's
thing
not
I see
helpful.
is,
Not helpful
yeah,
for a podcast, but
well, I think one thing I see so often is like I've said before, you can't legislate morality, but you also can't you can't legislate uh, a personality. You can't legislate different ways of life. You can't legislate to bring people together to create community. It's like it has to
that's
be
true.
something that's organic, and
Yeah,
that's
you
one
can't
thing that so
legislate culture.
often. Yeah, exactly. And so often I think that's the left's problem is they try and weaponize the government to legislate culture. And that's the problem. It's like that's where the left has switched and
It's
become so
it's not just the
monstrous
left
now.
though.
No, but that's where they've become. I think that's where they've been tricked into
Currently,
becoming their own authoritarian nightmare.
Well, I think
And
if you're trying to use statecraft to bind cultures that otherwise would be separate is pretty leftist. Yeah, and there are like some populist right wingers or whatever that try to do the same crap, but I still would consider them leftist. You know what I mean? I don't
fair
think.
yeah,
point. Fair point.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the state tries to homogenize cultures where they're different, and it just never works out. And I think to Scott Adams' point in the video is that you know there's been hundreds of years, uh, like after the Civil War, where all these programs came down, the Civil Rights Act, and things that as a libertarian or an anarchist you would have to disagree with just in principle.
Yep, it's true.
Uh, um, if someone wants to discriminate, that is their choice and freedom to do so, and it should be.
Yep.
So I don't disagree with what he was saying. I just find it weird that he's saying it. I think, he doesn't have a foundation of like ethics or morals or principles that
No.
is guiding him other than, just going with the breeze or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think if people and groups want to be separate from one another, by all means, go ahead. I'm not going to step in and like after the Civil War and shit, just real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Like,
you're fine. No, I was cutting you off. Keep going. Keep going.
like after, like with the integration of schools and things like that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what is it? I believe it's Dunbar High School in DC. I hope I'm getting that right.
Okay.
It was an all-black high school before integration, and it outcompeted even the white schools in its area. And a lot of the schools in the South that were black schools were asking for more funding and not to be integrated. And then the Yankee blacks came down and said, no, you need to be integrated. And they wanted to stay separate, and they were doing better separately than they are integrated. Now you can make of that what you will, but I think there is something to, if people want to be separate from each other, forcing them to be together is worse than letting them voluntarily separate.
Okay, so I agree with you 100%, and I think that as a policy, certainly you shouldn't force people to integrate their cultures and their communities. And maybe in some cases it just isn't a good idea to even advocate for it. Possibly, I'll go along with you on that. I guess my only pushback on that idea of even just not like of advocating for people to separate themselves and to divide up their communities, or well, I guess not divide up the communities if you're not a community, I guess. But I guess my experience of when I moved to the South, for example, I moved from an area where there is very little racial diversity here in my county. I guess you could say it's like mostly just white people, like 90 something percent.
Yeah.
And when I moved down south, that was a huge culture shock, but I derived so much personal value from that experience moving down south and like being exposed to all these different cultures. And I really appreciated a lot of those people and got to know some people from different, like not only the white Southern culture, but the black Southern culture, which is a completely different thing.
And their similarities too. I mean,
definitely there's a lot of overlap, but then they are disparate too.
Yes.
And I guess personally, like I can't, with a good conscience, I would never say what Scott Adams said, and as a good conscience, be able to say that, yeah, you should just white people just get away. I don't agree with that because I found so much personal value in it.
It
Now,
sounds
not to
harsh.
say
It
it
sounds
does,
harsh.
yeah, it
I,
does, and not to say that everybody that would go through the exact same experience that I did would derive personal value from that. Like, obviously, I'm a unique individual that did. So, for me to expect that everybody else would have the same experience, some people might hate it.
yeah. Well, I think
So
in the South, the culture is different, and in part because of the history is that the South was integrated for 100 years when the North had Jim Crow laws. Was the first to have Jim Crow laws, and people, when they think about the South and they get their public school
yeah,
depiction of it, they
don't get me
understand
started.
it. Yeah, they think that every white Southerner just hated all blacks and stuff like that. When in the South, even during slavery, the whites and blacks shared churches, and like they were very close in culturally. I think what makes Scott Adams' statement so harsh is that I mean, people don't want to be, seen as, people want to be seen as like caring and like the whole virtue signaling for other groups. And it's like, this group has an in-group preference. Every time we've tried to help them through XYZ program has backfired. You know what I mean? And we know how the state works, well, if you want to incentivize some bad behavior, create a program for it that never goes away.
Well, that's true.
So like all the programs that have been created to help the black community have hurt it more than anything.
Well, and you have to wonder if people actually look at the statistics and data, then they know this, like the people who write these laws. And so if they know this and they're still pushing for more laws that are similar in nature and have similar outcomes, then you have to surmise that this is intentional. And if this is intentional, then you have to look at this as systematic warfare. This is fourth, or what do they call that? Is that third generational or whatever warfare? It's what. But that's like information. But like I think third generation is what they did to the black community with like abortion and everything. Like in I think is it New York, 75% of babies are aborted. Some insanely high number of black babies, are aborted. It's some insanely high number. Where the replacement of black, I think the black community has a fall-in replacement number, or an inadequate replacement number, because the abortion rate is so high, and so that's the decimation of these different cultures. And so, but I think you see like so many in the laws that were passed in all of these different in these different eras. As seemingly good things, when you actually look at the motivations behind those, the deeper motivations, like what laws actually passed with the goodness of the citizen in mind. Like the laws are really passed oftentimes, I think, to pull in a certain voter block.
It's
probably the most common reason.
It's totally a political football and very Machiavellian. That you can always point. You can exacerbate a problem and point to the one who created it, or the person before you may not even have created it, and be like, it's their fault. You know what I mean? We're doing everything we can to fix it. Meanwhile, you're just making it worse. So.
Yeah, when I see two possible scenarios being true in that case, either the people that are passing these laws do know the information going into it, and they're doing it anyway, even though it's going to be bad, or they don't know. And then they just do it they're just doing it anyway because it's like popular or whatever,
Yeah.
Granted, one is probably worse than the other, but they're both really bad because you're doing things that affect a lot of people, and that if the outcome is negative, well, then therefore it is bad. So
yeah, I mean, we live in a in a time where economic literacy is basically frowned upon. So it's sometimes you can attribute it to malice and sometimes you can attribute it to ignorance, but you get the same outcome either way. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep, and I think that's I think there's a healthy mix of that. I think and I think what often starts is ignorance for people who are in office longer or in the what they call the dark state or just the unelected bureaucratic underlying workings of our government. Like all of those. Sorry, I am losing my train of thought here.
That's all right.
I don't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, they're all tied together. Part of whatever we were talking about.
Yeah,
Did I totally derailed that?
Hell yeah, Dan.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, fellas, I don't know. Have we are we reaching the end of this thing, or you want to keep going, or?
I'm down to keep hanging. If you guys got to go, I don't have much of nothing going on, so
okay.
I'll hang as long as you guys want.
I'm good. You call the shots, John. You're our temp.
I am the temporary host, I guess, of this thing. So
you're trepidatious. Where's Sam at? He needs to give you a confidence booster.
Yeah. He yeah, Sam has not been doing good for the last couple of weeks, and I know he was really struggling with being sick last week, and then he gets kind of having some throat issues or whatever, and he's like losing his voice on the last one, and he's like, I just need to give my throat a break here this week. So
who's he been yelling at?
Probably his kids. I don't know. No, that's a joke. Sam wouldn't do that. Let's see. Topic that we could talk about. We've kind of already talked about most of these. Did you guys catch that Donald Trump went to Ohio and seemed to be kind of killing it?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Like the difference between his welcome and Pete Buttigieg. Pete's was so like cringy, and Trump was just like one of the guys.
Daniel's that cracking your fireplace, or what is that?
Hell yeah, it is.
It might be my fireplace. Is that disrupting the audio?
Yeah, it's kind of loud.
I can close the doors and see if that helps.
Well, Trump
might or might not.
I mean, of course, Trump is going to receive a warm welcome in rural Ohio.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that area, so I'm assuming that was fairly red-leaning to start with. Obviously, I think the conservative media is probably spinning it a little bit as to they're saying, "Oh, look, he's really firming up Ohio as a red state now," because I think kind of historically Ohio's kind of swung one way or the other. It's kind of a swing state, but the areas that are going to be that he would need to get is not East Palestine, probably would be my guess.
Yeah, no, I'm not really. I don't even think that matters. Like, I just think like the tackiness of Pete showing up 2.5 weeks.
My daughter. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. She just lost another tooth. So
nice! Well, congratulations.
Tooth fairy's coming tonight, huh? Making your letters for the tooth fairy. All right.
Yeah, I have a daughter just a little bit younger than that. So
these teeth are dropping like flies in this house.
So.
I mean, got a little ways to go.
My daughter is just getting her teeth.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think. I mean, politically, great stunt by Trump. Like he knows where he knows where his base is. And
the whole country is watching right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, he's gearing up for another run. I don't think he has a chance in hell, but we'll see. I mean, it was a good stunt on his behalf.
When I first started watching, I didn't think he had when he first announced, I thought like he doesn't have a chance at all. And he made some really bad moves in the beginning.
He did.
But then I the other day I was thinking back to when he was running for 2016, and I was like, he actually, like, everybody thought the same thing. Like nobody thought he had a chance in hell.
Well, and now he's got a record that goes against his base, so he would have to do quite a bit of ass kissing and apologizing to make up some of the stuff with his base.
Well, I mean that's fair, but he doesn't have to win over his base to win the election. He just has to win over enough people in order to get the nomination, and then he just has to be just a little bit better than the opposition. And who are they going to put up who's better than a Donald Trump?
I think Ron DeSantis is the only one that has a chance.
No, I'm talking about the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody.
I mean, like in the general election. So if he can somehow get the nomination, then like getting the general election is going to be the easy part. And so yeah,
whether or not he can
I don't know if he can get the
but...
nomination, but
well, you can run, with the exception of Hillary Clinton. You can run. I mean, they drug Joe Biden's corpse across the finish line against Trump. You know, so and we're talking about fortified elections. Trump having a bad record now. You know,
also true. Yeah.
The landscape is different, a lot different than 2016. You know.
Yeah, I do think
Trump,
there is something to ballot harvesting though.
And
that
Trump
is one
definitely
thing that they're embracing.
Trump. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Trump. He energizes his opposition and mobilizes them really well, more than someone who is kind of more timid would be. You know, a Ron DeSantis doesn't make people pissed off enough to go out marching in the streets. They might, get upset about it, but his rhetoric and stuff doesn't motivate him as much.
I think Trump. You guys might think I'm crazy, but I think Trump has a better chance if he was to get the nomination. I think Trump would have a better chance of winning the election this coming time in 2024 than he did in 2020. I don't think he had a chance to win in 2020 because
I actually think he does. I agree with you.
Yeah, because what you said, his opposition had 4 years of getting whipped up and getting organized to put him out. But now, I mean, he's kind of not as big of a figure for these 4 years now that Joe Biden is in. He doesn't have the power. He isn't the president. So he's running a little bit more under the radar than when he was the actual president that everybody could be mad at and live to their fullest Trump derangement syndrome symptoms out,
Yeah, and he does have a really good scapegoat. I mean, I'm not a Trump guy. This isn't me rooting for Trump. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. But he does have a really good scapegoat in the fact that he had the entire administrative state working against him. Like, he was being stonewalled everywhere. And so
which he doesn't have now.
Yeah. Exactly. And so he can tout that and say, hey, listen, I couldn't get things done. I know you wanted me to get more things done, but I couldn't. And so now looking at that, that's something he can sell back to get some of his base back. And there's different things. Now, the one thing that I think is going to be really tough to overcome is I think he's burnt a lot of his base on his stance on the vaccine. Like his continued stance on that. It's like some of them he may never get back. I think he has a chance if he modifies his stance to get
what
some
are
of them
those
back.
people
but
in the general election know who are they going to vote for?
That's my point. It's like, I don't think you can count him out. That's what everybody thought in 2016 is like, you count this guy out, he doesn't stand a chance. And his arguments, like if you watch those original debates against like Rand Paul and stuff, Rand Paul had like the best arguments. He was winning in all the polls, but the media assassinated him and they chose Trump. And you can see that there's hundreds of documented cases of where they misplaced Rand Paul in the polling and placed somebody else above him, where he was like winning over and over and over and over and over again in these different polls. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but he was actually like up by over, I think like 20 points in the Iowa straw poll, like over 20 points with 16 contenders in the race. So like he had some really good numbers starting out. But then the media assassinated him and they chose Trump. And that's the problem, is the media has Trump derangement syndrome. And I don't think you can count Trump out, because good press or bad press, it's press. And I think people forget, they have short memories. People are going to look at Trump and they're going to be like, he's the guy who can get it done. He got stopped last time, but he's going to get it done this time. And like, I think you're being naive if you count him out. Again, just that was definitely me in 2016. I don't want to see another 4 years of Trump personally. But I think it's at this point potentially inevitable. He seems to be an unstoppable force.
That's a pretty valid point. I think he has to make it out of the primary first, and that was going to be grueling. Any primary opponent he has, any primary opponent he has,
is a good opponent.
Yeah, if he tries to scapegoat on the administrative state stopping him, you can talk about how he enabled him throughout all the COVID crap, and he had, the reins of power to fire all these woke generals, and never did it. I think his record is really going to bite him in the ass throughout the primaries, and then if he makes it past the primaries, the Democrats are going to use that same shit against him.
But the problem is, remember how Trump behaves himself in a debate. You don't get to make a cohesive argument against him because he's going to call you stupid or fathead or whatever. Like, how do you make an argument against the guy? He's dominating in any type of interaction. And so if you choose to go up against him, like, you have to be solid on your toes. You can't lose your train of thought. You have to be able to take a beating and come back over and over and over again and restart. And build a cohesive argument in the face of that kind of attack. It's difficult for anybody to stand against him and sound qualified in a debate just because of the way that he acts.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it as someone who doesn't vote. I voted one time. Yeah, I voted one time in 2008 for Dr. Ron Paul, and that was my first and only time I ever plan on voting. So now I just enjoy the popcorn and the ride, and Trump is fun to watch, whether you love him or hate him.
The entertainment value of Trump has been like, it's not worth all the bad stuff he did, but it was entertaining, that's for sure.
Well, and even all the bad stuff he did, he's still preferable to a lot of others. So.
Oh, well, that's true, for sure.
Yeah.
You can rank your preferences.
He didn't give us a war in Ukraine, that's for sure.
Well, he threatened to bomb Moscow if Russia invaded. He said, "I'll drop nukes on Moscow." So, hey, he had some historic.
You go.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say he had a lot of historic, foreign policy moments. Stepping into the DMZ of North Korea.
It was a big deal.
Going to the Forbidden City in China, and drawing back on the war in Syria for whatever, even though he got lied to from his generals on that, setting a timetable for withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah. Arguably, the world was in some ways more peaceful, in some ways less peaceful with him as president. Didn't he drop more? Did Obama drop more bombs than him? I think he dropped more bombs than Obama, though, didn't he?
I'd have to go check the record on
that. I couldn't tell you.
I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped more.
Yeah, and so it's not. He wasn't necessarily peaceful, but he also didn't put new troops on the ground. And so there's things to be said for that. And I think that honestly, anybody who got into power, even if you took a totally peaceful stance on everything, you would still have to pull the trigger a couple times to get out of. I think we're so deeply embedded in these different things. Even if you want to cut ties and come out peacefully on everything, it's like, how do you just, you've got somebody in a death hold and they've got a knife to your side, but the only way that you're keeping that knife from going in and puncturing the lung is by holding them there. And if you let them go, so like, we're so embroiled in the world's affairs now. It's how do you become unentangled? Peacefully.
Well, I think the only real way to do it would be to do what Ron Paul wanted to do and just get out and take the beating. You're going to take a beating when it happens. I think that's probably the only way to do it, though.
Yeah,
I think it is the best way.
You're not signing much new policy. You're just firing people and cutting jobs.
Yeah, it will be messy. That is for sure. Because there will be a lot of, when it comes to like the domestic stuff, there'll be a lot of people unemployed because the government employs a lot of people.
Yeah. It's got its tentacles in just about everything now. So
I walked into a the Farm Service Agency building in the next town over last week, and I had to take a test for my commercial applicator's license so I can apply chemicals to fields commercially. So I had to take this test or whatever. But when I walked in there were probably about, I don't know, 8 or 10 employees in this. It was like a USDA / FSA, which is Farm Service Agency building, and then it also has NRCS, which is National Conservation Reserve something. Anyway, and most of them were reading the newspaper on their computer screens, just sitting there, like doing nothing.
You gotta love good old fashioned government licensing and regulators.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, and the license itself cost $325.
Well, somebody has
And
to pay them to sit there.
yeah, exactly. And of course, the license doesn't mean anything. I mean, the test is not hard, and
Yeah.
it's just to get your name on the list, basically,
Yeah.
is all it is.
I bet everybody in that building would still fail their own test, though.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I was in the Baltic region in 2008, 10, and 12, and so I was in Bulgaria and Macedonia, and a lot of those countries, part of the former Yugoslavian Republic, it collapsed, and they were in communism and fell out, and they had unemployment rates of like 90+% for years, because everybody was employed by the government. And when the government went away, nobody knew how to work because they all had their cushy jobs. Nobody did real work. And it's just crazy to think that like the few people who actually do the real work can support everyone. Obviously they can't. It doesn't last for very long. It's a Ponzi scheme, which is why the government isn't here anymore, or why it went away. But it's like, comparing that and looking at our government is top heavy. Our government employs over half the employable workforce in this country, and they support over 50% of the population on welfare. And it's crazy to think that like if the government went away, that's over half the population that all of a sudden has to figure out how to fend for themselves, when a lot of them haven't for years.
We'd be able to bring all those manufacturing jobs back over here from China and Vietnam and the rest of the world if we had all those people just begging for jobs, wouldn't we?
Yeah, but would they know how to work? They'd all be basic laborers.
They'd learn.
They'd learn quick. It doesn't.
Janitors.
It doesn't take much to do this all day long.
True.
Push a button. Push a button.
Yeah, I mean, it's the productive class is totally being. I mean, there's a parasitic relationship going on, you know. So.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane the direction our country is going when we have so many other historical references.
Well, and in some ways, you know, I like it. In some ways, I don't. You know, I think it lends itself to secessionist movements or decentralization.
Yeah.
You know, the more the federal government grows, the more it alienates people, the more it seems to expand into a point to where it's going to collapse in on itself. You know, people are going to have, you know, if a collapse does happen, people, like you said, are going to have to learn to fend for themselves and become members of the productive class. And
I just wish it would hurry up and happen. I mean, I believe that every day that this thing continues going down the path that it's going, the end result, the implosion of this thing is only going to get worse. You know, the longer this thing holds on, the worse it's going to be when it comes to an end.
Oh, for sure.
And I wish it would just hurry up. I wish the end would just hurry up and get here and just get it over with, because it's going to suck. It's going to suck for everybody. And but it's only going to get it worse. Now, the other thing is like, not only is it like going to be bad, there's also going to be some big opportunities though, as this thing comes apart. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's like, you know, can like kind of see it coming, or, you know, can somehow position themselves just a little bit better than their neighbor or whatever, is going to have a significant advantage fortunes are made when civilizations fall. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And well, and then, the other part of that whole thing is like, it seems like today, well, you look back in history when civilizations fell, or even like back to how the United States started back in 1776 or whatever, like things were like technically are worse now than they were back then. And then they started, a shooting war back in 1776 over things that nowadays people are just like, oh yeah, the government's the government. I like some days I'm like, why is it that nobody's like pushing back for real on this stuff? And I think a lot of it is we're just waiting for the next guy over to do it.
Yeah. I mean, there is sort of like a critical mass aspect to it, and the people that do push back are put down so swiftly and made an example out of. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Creates definitely a chilling effect to deter anyone from wanting.
And they were back, in the beginning of the revolution too. I mean, like the Boston Massacre, for example, and then the first couple battles, Lexington and Concord race. I mean, the British won all those battles, because those were the first guys out, and they were the first guys to go down. So I don't know. Yep. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely, it will be.
What the breaking point will be.
Yeah, and everything is fought on an information level first now, and it's like I think even with this information age war, like eventually, like things get pushed to breaking points, and what those breaking points are going to be, we have yet to see.
That's true.
It's interesting because it looks like the tides are turning a little bit on the information war. Like more people are opening their eyes today than what have been for a while, and it's like we just have to see how that's harnessed, because obviously we want to help our goal is to influence it, or influence people to think for themselves, stop listening to somebody else tell you how to think, and make your own decisions, take responsibility for your actions. But if there's a whole bunch of people who are waking up to the fact that everything they've been told all their lives is a lie, and they have to decide how they're going to react to that. Or am I going to go to some other strong voice that's going to say, here, I can tell you the truth, like has been done so many times throughout history? Or are they going to take advantage of this for the first time in history, this incredible wealth of knowledge that's available to like 90% of the world's population at the touch of their fingertips today with Starlink? And it's like, within a few seconds, you have 98% of the world's available information at your fingertips, and you can access it basically anywhere in the world. And so people have the opportunity for the first time to truly think for themselves. And so it will be interesting to see how history shapes itself now differently than previously.
No, that's true. It will be interesting to see how it happens.
Yeah. Boys, I got to sign off of here. Yeah, somebody's really looking forward to the Tooth Fairy coming tonight. So,
all right, well, Garbage Man. All right. Hit us with your plug.
It's been real.
Get us your Twitter handles or whatever else you're gonna do. Hit us with that before you go.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack Pasobic.
No, God, no, please not
him. But no, I've had a good time here tonight, boys, and I appreciate it. If you're following me, unfollow me. If you're not following me, send me hate mail or death threats or whatever you may.
I'm going to add you on Twitter right now.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Right,
I'm out.
Man. Yeah.
Have a good night. Well, Daniel, should we wrap it up?
Sure. Yeah. You can follow me at Ryan_Hanson, HANSON, on Twitter. I'm also, well, you won't be able to find me on YouTube. Yeah. That's me.
And I'm John_Wiersma, just like the name on the screen. So at that. So thanks, guys, for tuning into the Black Flag podcast. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later.